SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
State Treasurer David McRae is returning record amounts of money to Mississippians, whether it's through the College and Career Savings Program or the hundreds of millions in unclaimed money awaiting your claim. Treasurer David McRae says get your applications and claims in today. Treasury.ms.gov.
As usual, I'm trying to organize all my paperwork. Nobody ever told me there was this much paperwork in broadcasting when I got started. And we didn't even have computers then. It was all paper, and I didn't have this much.
There should have been a Paperwork Reduction Act somewhere out there that you may have missed the memo. That's all right.
Yeah, well, they're welcome to come try this with zero paper and let me know how that goes for them. Dave Hughes here. How you doing this morning, Lance? Lance Tolbert over in the booth, as always.
I'm happy to be here, Dave. Welcome to Friday. I mean, got a lot of stuff going on. Never enough time to get it all in, but we'll do our best. I know you'll be on top of it.
Welcome to Friday, and welcome to May. Yeah. The year is now officially 1/3 over.
It seems like it just started.
Yeah. 4 months in the can, in the books. We're done. And we're moving forward. Are you tired? I'm tired.
Man, I don't know. It's just you wake up, you get going every day, and you just hope that there's good news and something positive out there. Sometimes you do get a morsel, and many times it's just been a lot of controversy and conflict and division and derision, and I think it does bear on people a lot over time. It's something that is kind of like a dripping faucet a little bit. You get used to it, but you're still aggravated. You just don't know you are.
Well, and that's the problem with the fear merchants and the anger peddlers out there, is that they have forgotten one simple rule of humanity, unless that's the goal. And that's this. If you're a human being, you can, and I've said this before, you can only stay mad or scared for so long until you just become numb. Yeah, it's a mental defense mechanism. You just get to the point to where, whatever.
Is that Pink Floyd, right? Comfortably numb?
Yes, except theirs was from a completely different reason.
Yeah, just the sound or the saying, comfortably numb. It does make sense because I feel it at times. I try to research an awful lot and keep my nose in the book, so to speak, so that, we're on top of things. And, the narrative, as you mentioned the last couple of times we've been together, it's very polarized. It's very, strewn across two really divergent schools of thought, it seems, where neither really seems to be able to get along. There's so many extremes. There doesn't seem to be a lot of moderation. I don't know if you feel that or see that, but it even seems in reading and research you get the extreme opinions.
That's 100% the truth, and it's bled over into science and everything else. But the more disturbing part to me isn't that things are polarized. It's the fact that it has become a dirty word to be anywhere in the middle. Yeah. If you're not all the way out to one side or another, you're a horrible human being and don't know what you're doing, and obviously don't have the intellect to perform day-to-day activities in your life because you're stupid. And that's never been the way everything works.
Nah. It's life is much more simple generally. Most people want to get up, go to work, make a living, raise their kids, have a little money in the pocket at the end of the day. They don't really look at the next person over and go, man, I just don't like them. They look wrong to me. Or that religion. Oh, every time I ride by that church, you give them the finger or something. That's not the way real people in the world really work,
No.
It's not.
It's not. It never has been. I was taught when I started in radio back in the 1600s. It's been a minute. When I started in radio, I was taught something that has stuck with me all this time, and it was this: when you turn the microphone on, and as it turns out, by the way, this rule applies to everything in life, whether we want to admit it or acknowledge it or not. This is the way things work. When you turn that microphone on, 10% of the people listening are going to love everything you say, no matter what it is. 10% are going to hate it, no matter what it is. So you are working for the 80% in the middle.
That's right.
Which is the truth, but that applies to everything. The two extremes are a sorting mechanism. The whole point is to take that 80% and sort it to one end or the other. Unfortunately, we've gotten really good at it. So now it's to the point where, and we have an advanced case of this disease, Lance, you and I and everyone in this business, because it's a 3-hour show on Friday. What people don't realize is you have to spend at least an hour prepping for each hour you're going to be on the air. And some days that's not enough. The number of things, and I'm sure you're the same way, that I read, that I research, that never make it onto the air outnumber what we do get to talk about every week. Yeah. So we're drowning in it, basically. And as a result, that's my official quote for today. I don't know how to spell it, or I'd be selling T-shirts already, but sums it up. And it continues, and the stupidity. Couple of new developments. I know we've been talking this week about the redistricting thing and the Supreme Court ruling. Some more things came out yesterday and last night, and this is going to become exactly as ridiculous as I thought it was going to become before it's over.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be. It's hard to really get excited one way or the other, I think. It's nice to see that decisions are made and you get something out there, but it seems to me like it's going to definitely be a long laundry list of ridiculousness that precedes us, and then you got that coming where you're coming back down the mountain. You feel like, oh, well, hey, this is going to be great. I feel like there's going to be some rough steps and some rocky crags and some trouble along the way. It's just my gut feeling on it.
Well, I hate to say it, but we have allowed our priorities to get twisted around in a lot of different ways. The specific way right now that I'm talking about, I'll talk about other ways later on this morning, but the specific way right now is the fact that we are so caught up in the process and we get excited for things that ultimately will have zero impact directly on us, that we miss those sometimes. And we've got to stop getting excited only about the things we're told we should be excited about.
Yeah, well, like Schopenhauer said, the illusion of victory is the cheapest toy you can give the masses to keep them in line.
Yes, that's exactly right. Make everybody think they're winning all the time. There are winners and there are losers. We do not need the taxation, judicial, legislative versions of participation trophies. You win or you lose. We want to win on the things that affect raising your kids, having your home, having your job, having a little money in your pocket at the end of the month, just like you were saying. That's what we should be shooting for, not all the other nonsense, in my book.
I think
we spend all of our time on the other nonsense, it feels like.
That's the theater part. What you and I were just discussing is simple and normal and doesn't really move the needle, I guess.
Yeah.
When clicks are where you go to get paid, sometimes you go for the sensational rather than the logical.
Yes, everything has been optimized for bad governance. And here's the standard I'm using to make that claim. I've said this before on my local show so many times. Good governance is boring. It is so boring. Just come in, take care of business, get things done, and move on with your day. Well, they're like you just said, there's no clicks in that. So we don't encourage good governance anymore, in my opinion. Good governance should be so boring it doesn't even make the news hardly.
Well, I love our text this morning from David. Life is really kind of this simple for most people. Yeah, a whippoorwill served my alarm this morning at 4 a.m. I didn't pull a muscle sleeping last night, so it's a good start for the day. Like most people have simple things. What they're looking for in the day is to have a nice day, man. Not pull a back muscle, get a good night's sleep, hear the birds chirp, smell the roses a little bit. And we should take more time to do that. But it's hard sometimes when it feels like the pot's being stirred, and if you're not paying attention to that pot being stirred, you're doing something wrong.
Yes, that's it's the guilt trip. The guilt trip is ruining peace of mind in America, and that includes right here in Mississippi. Oh, don't worry. I'm going to get worse before the day goes on. I'll just warn you. Well, if you've ever listened to the show, you knew that already, but fair warning. It's just going to get worse. We will continue on this Friday morning here on Mornings right after this.
Happy Friday from the
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome back on a Friday morning here on SuperTalk Mississippi Mornings, brought to you by the folks at Community Bank. All you got to do is stop by and check them out, or go to the website, communitybank.net. The show presented by Community Bank, and with good reason. They're very, very good people. The weather is so bad it's affecting Chicago. I'm sure you saw that.
What's going on in Chicago?
Oh, nothing. The band Chicago was supposed to perform at the Brandon Amphitheater tonight, and it's been moved to Sunday.
You got me too early for that, man.
Sorry.
I was actually looking at the Euro prediction model when you said that. I'm like, man, Chicago looks clear as a bell up there.
Yeah, there's nothing going on there.
What are we talking about?
They finally slipped a cog. No, in case you haven't heard, Chicago in concert. It was scheduled for tonight at the Brandon Amphitheater, but because of the weather, they have moved it to Sunday.
All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad they didn't just cancel it outright,
No joke. That was kind of unusual. I was amazed by that, but
they're like,
very
hey, we ain't got nothing
about
better to do, and we like Mississippi, so we're going to stick around. Chicken in a car, and a car won't go. That's how you spell Chicago.
We could just end the show there, can't we? After that,
I swear, man, my mom she was so funny. Oh, it still is. I mean, like her home company was in Chicago, Allstate, and growing up, that was just always. My mom is funny and goofy and all that, and that was always said around the house. I think my mama on my dad's side would even say it. So it was just one of those things that you got used to saying. And I love some of the old phrases from that era, the 50s, 60s, and 70s, that you just don't hear anymore.
You bring up an interesting point. Everybody has things that are said in their family catchphrases, I guess you would call it, that nobody else ever says. Yeah. And every so often you come out with one and everybody looks at you like you've gone crazy. Like, where did that come from? Everybody has them. I'm curious, if you have the time on the C Spire text line, text in your family phrases like that everybody else kind of raises an eyebrow when you use it in public, and you thought it was normal.
No, I love
growing up.
Yeah, that's that kind of stuff brings me back to childhood in a more simple time. I was just in line at Dollar General yesterday. Somebody was buying something, and I don't know how, but I was like, I think the charge came up to like $19.85 for the person in front of me, and I said, "Ooh, that's the golden era." 1985. And the lady behind the counter and the person buying the goods looked at me and were like, man, if we could just go back to those times.
No joke.
Did you know how good it was when you were wearing Vans and parachute pants and, you could wear pretty much your hair any way you wanted and, every color in the rainbow roll called and, the music. I mean, it was just that time where things seemed to be a little simpler at least.
Oh, as opposed to the 70s when everything was brown.
Everything was brown and you had bombs going off everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a rough time. So, the 80s were that reprise, right after just absolutely some of the craziest times culturally, socially in our country's history.
I'll start that off by the way. Well, you started it off. I'll continue it. Spent a lot of time fishing with my grandparents, my mom's mom and dad. My grandfather was a retired conductor from the railroad, the Illinois Central Gulf Railroad at the time, which has since been merged into Amtrak.
Good answer. I got something for Amtrak for you today.
We went into the lake in their boat during the summer every day, but over the weekend during school time. And get out there, and my grandfather, who was a master class fisherman, he would throw his bait out, he would, turn the reel twice, snatch it, and bring in another fish. It was sickening. In a good way, but it was sickening.
It was an art form, and he had figured it out.
I learned very quickly not to complain that I wasn't catching as much as him, or I wasn't catching it right, because his explanation every time was, you ain't holding your mouth right.
Yes, you're not holding. You're like, what?
First time he told me that, I spent a good 10 minutes trying to figure out which mouth position he was using to catch the fish, because I believed him.
Yeah. You're looking over at him like, is it his hat or is it his mouth? What is he doing different? I'm not doing it, apparently. I used to love fishing with my papaw and my grandfather, both of them. Papaw, we would fish at Legion Lake here and there back in the day. They were from McGee, and then my grandfather, we would, he was a pretty big outdoorsman, but he had a boathouse over here at the reservoir. So back in the good old days, we'd get up real early, go to the gas station over there off of 43, where you could pull your boat up to it, load up. I'd get an icy, and he'd get make sure he had plenty of Red Man and minnows and all that. And then we'd go out in the boat. You'd spend hours upon hours and never even realize that you'd been out there that long. And anything else in life, when you're 8 years old, it just feels like, wow, this is taking so long. I mean, I'm so bored, but I never really got bored. Granddaddy was always fun in the boat, man. He would keep you laughing, and, you would learn things, and the sayings you would hear were always first class, I mean, can't remember all that stuff, but then getting back, go and get a sandwich and stuff, just good times. I mean, and you're at that time of year, too, where a lot of folks will be spending time with their grandkids, taking them fishing, spring and summer, and, love to see some pics of the outdoors, and some of the things you guys do in your free time with your families.
That's what life is all about.
Yes, that's the good stuff.
Life is not about work. Life is not about politics. Life is about living.
Yeah.
And boy, do we miss that point most days.
Well, we got hopefully this weekend, the weather, it looks to be a little rough around the state, at least if you're going to be a baseball fan of Southern Miss this weekend.
Yeah.
I wanted to cover that one first because they're at home this weekend against ULM, and it looks to me like, and again, this is a forecast, but as of today through sometime tomorrow, it looks like that storm is probably going to get through around 2 o'clock, maybe a little bit after that. So today till about 2 o'clock tomorrow, I would say be careful with making hard plans. If we have any updates with Southern Miss game while we're on air, we'll let you know for sure. But there is a pretty good bit of rain forecasted to blow through the state in that southern half, may even reach up to about Jackson through the day and tomorrow. So we've had plenty of rain in the central area. Not sure about the northern part of the state. It looks a little better today. So Ole Miss and State are on the road. You don't really have to worry about them. They're pretty clear. State has Texas. Ole Miss is at Arkansas. So those are going to be cleared out. This storm actually came through there first. So it looks pretty clear on the backside of that. So it shouldn't be any problems with the game plan for those two. But, yeah, just be a little bit mindful if you're in South Mississippi today and in the morning or trying to get over to the Southern Miss game. Chance of precipitation is 90% during the day today. And it'll be clearing off tomorrow. So you got a 40% chance, as I was saying before, 1. And then after that, it just looks beautiful. So
okay, that's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, so if there happens to be a doubleheader tomorrow or something like that, just be prepared. Double check your plans. Up in the northern part of the state, looks beautiful. 69 degrees today. Are you joking? 20% chance of showers between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. tonight. So not a whole lot to worry about. Low around 47 degrees in North Mississippi. We're in May, man.
I was just about to point that out. I have seen some forecasts that say Sunday, Monday morning especially, North Mississippi, we could see wind chills in the upper 30s.
Well, Saturday night in the Corinth and North Mississippi area, you're nailing it right there, buddy. 41 degrees would be the straight line temp. So with some winds coming out of the northwest, that should cool it off a little bit more. As you get to Sunday, should be a beautiful day, 71 degrees. And then Sunday night down to 49. So the real cool one looks like Saturday night, with that little bit of wind chill to add to the equation. So bundle up there in North Mississippi. Delta, pretty much like we were talking about. You're going to have a slight chance of showers today. Showers likely before 11 p.m. tonight. Low around 51 degrees tonight, though. And in the Delta, it's going to be a low around, about a high around 68 during the day. So not very balmy in the Delta either. Should have some nice little, not too heavy winds, about 5 miles an hour getting out of the northeast. And the chance of the wet stuff tonight is about 70% in the Delta. So, like I said, it's this central Mississippi down to the coastline. Be a little bit cloudy and murky through the evening, but it'll clear up tomorrow. And then again, tomorrow, mostly cloudy. Wind gusts will pick up to about 20 miles an hour, but not a heck of a lot of worry about the rain tomorrow as you get going. So the Delta being a little further west, as we know, that storm will be through there much earlier than what we saw in the other forecasts with, say, Hattiesburg. But that kind of catches it up.
Yeah, I've seen some people referring to this as a blackberry winter.
I think it may be, yeah.
Yeah, because that means, the temperatures get into the 30s while the blackberries are getting ripe.
Man, we've had twice that.
I'm tired. It's
Double
May.
down. Yeah.
I'm tired of my jacket. It's May.
3 weeks ago, we had that snap come through, and several of our northern Mississippi folks on the Garden Mama show that are so good at sharing our their photos, the blackberries, blueberries, everything they were worried about, but they kind of rebounded quickly.
Yeah, they're more resilient than you would think.
Oh, yeah, the birds need them.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. If you can't beat the birds to them, it doesn't matter whether they get ruined. You're not eating them.
Exactly. I mean, they're resilient.
Having that problem with the blackberries at my house, actually. But that explains why all the birds are round. They're eating well. We'll continue on this. We'll get into some birthdays and sports and all that stuff when we come back here on Mornings. Presented by Community Bank right after this.
From the sea. Now, what's happening across your state? Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
What's different about us? I don't really know. No matter how I try, I just can't make it right.
Good morning to you. If you're not in a good mood, we're going to try to change that as best we can and keep you informed at the same time. Welcome back to Mornings. Dave Hughes here, Lance in the booth, and let's take care of normal business. Yeah. Something we haven't done in the 6 o'clock hour in quite a while, I feel, because we keep distracting each other.
Squeeze it in. Well, we do have birthdays, some interesting things that happened on this day, and, a nice little roundup for sports to cover here, and we can knock that out. So, birthdays, not a whole lot of huge ones today, but there are a couple of interesting ones. Julie Benz, 54, from Dexter and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Jamie Dornan, 44, 50 Shades of Grey. And if people like, are the ones that like the soap operas out there, Stephen Macht, 84 years old, been around for a while, in Suits as well, but General Hospital fame. You have some musicians out there. Tim McGraw, 59 years old today. Live Like You Were Dying, or Humble and Kind. That's a couple of good ones there. Rita Coolidge, 81 years old, Higher and Higher fame. Ray Parker Jr., yes, I will play Ghostbusters for you today. Why not? What a great song.
Well, play The Other Woman instead.
Yeah, but Ray Parker Jr., one of my faves, 72 years old. He's kind of up there with like Herbie Hancock, you know.
I thought he was older than that. I really did.
Yeah. Wes Anderson, a great director, 57, kind of one of the, the crazy men in the directing world, if you like the interesting scenes and pastels and all kind of color schemes. He seems to have a great idea of, the palette out there that folks seem to migrate to, but 57 years old today. Abby Huntsman, everyone's favorite TV host from The View, 40 years old. And that's about it.
Well, let's get your definition of everyone, because I'm just thinking it might be different from a lot of folks.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Who are all on The View? I can't remember everybody, but I have it pulled up here, so
Whoopi and Joy, and I know that against my will.
Yeah,
that show is horrid.
Well, okay, let's see. You got Whoopi and Joy and Sunny. Okay, those are the three that I could name off the top of my head, probably. And then you got Sarah Haynes, Alyssa Farah Griffin, Anna Navarro. Seems to be the group that they have out there, created in '97 by veteran journalist Barbara Walters. Man, what a show! Goodness gracious. If you were invited on The View, what would you say? I mean, like, not on the show. What would be your first response if they said, Dave Hughes, we really want you on The View today?
No.
No? That would be just to be a flat no. You wouldn't even be curious, huh?
With a period. If they continued to ask, it would get louder and the punctuation would change, and there might even be some modifier words in front of the word no if they kept pushing it, but no would be my answer.
You would basically take it as a telemarketing call. I
am not going to make a trip to New York City to sit in a room with those harpies and listen to that for an hour. No.
You have to bring gifts and stuff just to keep them on your good side.
I got a gift.
Some gifts for them?
I got plenty.
I hear you, man. I love it. Well, there were a few things that happened on this day. One of the big things, and I'm sure most people would likely remember this event and the aftermath, which was, kind of strew on for many years, but in 1960, while on a reconnaissance flight deep inside the Soviet Union, a U.S. U-2 plane was shot down, and its pilot, Francis Gary Powers, who worked for the CIA, he was actually taken prisoner, resulting in confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union. It became known as the U-2 spy plane incident, or more simply put, the U-2 incident. Years later, there was a prisoner swap that was basically set up. James Jesus Angleton was not very excited about that, as he thought Powers was likely a CIA defector. He had basically chosen to crash the plane in Russia, and they didn't want to go get him, and they didn't want to swap for him. Years later, though, they finally got it. Was Rudolph Abel was the man. During the Nickel plot is where he was rounded up by the FBI. Great movie, Bridge of Spies, with Tom Hanks, goes into that in fair detail. And so you have that. But, tragically, Powers, he died in 1977 while piloting a helicopter for the Los Angeles TV station KNBC, Channel 4, over the San Fernando Valley. The Bell 206 Jet Ranger crashed, killing him and his cameraman, George Spears. They've been recording a video after brush fires, and, conspiracy theories definitely kind of started growing and emanating from that point about what really happened to Gary Powers. The story of Gary, though, is pretty cool. If you ever really want to go into one of the more interesting pieces in history and personalities, there's one right there. And
so what you're telling me is working in the media is more dangerous than infiltrating Soviet Russia.
Yeah. I mean, it's I can only imagine, and the recounting of the story from his perspective is much different than what the NSA at the time were kind of propagating. So, it also created that level of, who's right, who's telling the truth. Always kind of go back to the pilot on that. He was there. He understood what was going on and got popped from I can't remember exactly the missile type that they shot him out of the sky with, but he was on up there. You're talking about 35,000 or higher feet up to, I think, 60,000. So a place where they did not believe that rockets could get, but they did. And as many things, the Soviets kind of spooked us on that. And, it's one of those things we didn't know they had. Kind of like Gagarin when he was shot up into outer space, or Sputnik. There was times where we were last, and this was one of those where the U-2 plane thought to be invincible. It was not.
Well, and how many times, I would love to see a comprehensive list of the different times in human history where someone got pretty decently burned right after they said, well, that'll never happen. That's not possible. Mm-hmm. And then here comes the rocket to 40,000 feet.
There you go. On this day as well, 1915, the Lusitania ocean liner left New York on the same day. The German embassy took out advertisements actually warning anyone traveling on ships carrying the British flag, and did so at their own risk. It was sunk by a torpedo 6 days later. In 1926, the Ford Motor Company established the 5-day work week, which was 40 hours. And we've backed that down a little bit. What is it? Full work week now? What's 36? Is that what they say now? Or we want to go to the 4-day work week at 32 hours. I think is one of the proposals we've seen out there as well.
I don't know. I thought we were still on the 40 hours a week.
I think a lot of folks still honor that, yeah, as far as the standard. But I believe, and again, I'll look at that and make sure I'm not leading you astray. But I remember during part-time work. Remember when that was? I thought it was 36, is what if I remember, gets you to full time. And that I think maybe some of that happened during the COVID era or right before. Again, I'll have to look at that and see. Somebody might know a little more about that than I'm able to discern this morning.
And it reminds me of the old joke where a guy goes to a contractor to apply for a job working on job sites, and the guy says, now I got to tell you, this is a 60-hour-a-week job, and the guy applying for it said, oh, I didn't know it was part-time.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's a sliding scale on that.
I agree with you, man. I'm one of those, I like to work, especially if you're on an hourly clock, which I get an opportunity to do on the weekends. It's nice to see those hours build up, and especially if you get your other stuff, your salary job, but the hourly work, so I love doing a little extra, man. And you can see those hours, because salary work's different. You're on the clock, period, all the time. But sometimes that hourly stuff can make a big difference too. But yeah, a lot of that has to do with overtime and double time and all those things as well. So always been interested in the 40-hour work week, and you got to think Ford Motor Company established that. You're like, what were you doing before that? Everybody just works 7 days a week, 24/7, pretty much. So
pretty much. Henry Ford figured out that if you let people have a break and you don't work them into the ground, they work better.
It might actually have a life out there too, huh?
Of course, Henry Ford would never survive in today's world because his other rule was he wanted to pay his people the amount that would allow them to buy one of the cars they were making.
Yeah.
That was his rule of thumb for setting salaries.
Well, Amtrak, federally supported corporation that operates nearly all intercity passenger trains in the United States. It began service on this day in 1971, to circle back to your Amtrak moment. Also, we have Ole Miss in Arkansas teeing off today at 6 p.m., 2 p.m. tomorrow, 2 p.m. Sunday. Mississippi State, they're going to have Texas in Austin. 6:30 kickoff there. And then you got a 2:30 and 1 o'clock subsequently there for tomorrow and Sunday. Southern Miss, I think, will be a little bit up in the air, but you never know. Mother Nature may allow us to get those games in. Got a double header scheduled. Okay, actually, it has been updated already. So let me tell you, May 2nd, Saturday, 1 p.m. should be right when the weather is cleared through. The second game would start after that to be announced. So the double header is tomorrow. And ULM on Sunday, 3 o'clock p.m. One other quick thing. There was a great article out there about the top college pitchers in college baseball right now. And folks would love to know, one, Thomas Valinkas, left-handed pitcher, Mississippi State. He comes in at number 5 right now with a 2.13 ERA, 87 Ks, and those are the ones that you would imagine would have the highest chance of being drafted in the first round. There are a bunch of other good ones out there, but that's the highest-ranking one from the state of Mississippi, and a kid that had transferred in with Coach O'Connor. So there you go.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Almost as good as getting tens of thousands of dollars in your bank account. What? That sounds silly? No, we're going to talk about a way that can happen for you with the Mississippi Lottery coming up next here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Keep it here.
Well, it's all right. We're going to the end of the line.
Happy Friday.
From the White House to your hometown, this is where you find out what's happening. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
It's really hard to do this when you get me laughing like that right before the light goes on.
Yeah. I was telling Borky that. Yeah, I told Borky that yesterday. I always try to do that to Cross like right before we come back in. You know?
You do that on purpose. So we're on to you. We're on to you on this side of the show here. Welcome back, and it is time to talk about some money. And we had a big event this week because Byhalia, Mississippi. Someone in Byhalia has a whole bunch of new best friends and previously unknown second and third cousins because they won $2 million on the Powerball. Somebody, even after taxes, is a millionaire. They matched all 5 of the white balls. They didn't get the Powerball, but they got the other 5 numbers right. That was in Wednesday night's drawing, and they did the $1 power play on it. It would have been $1 million, but that power play doubled it to $2 million. So big deal there. We have a new millionaire in the state of Mississippi. That's news, I think. Wouldn't you think so?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Now, the Powerball jackpot is resetting for tomorrow night to $20 million, the baseline amount, because 2 tickets, one in Indiana, one in Kansas, won the $143 million jackpot. That one, again, $20 million, estimated cash value $9.1 million if you win that one. Also, the biggest jackpot in Lotto America, well, third biggest, I should say. $23.85 million for tomorrow night's drawing, estimated cash value of $10.84 million. That's the drawing tomorrow night for Lotto America. It's a great time I started to say it's a great time to become a millionaire. Is there a bad time to become a millionaire?
No. The best time is when taxes are low, obviously, but there's no bad time to actually become a millionaire. No.
It's kind of like the old story about planting a shade tree. The best time to plant a shade tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. Same thing applies to becoming a millionaire.
I love it.
And the thing is, though, you're not going to do that if you don't buy a ticket.
No, you gotta buy that thing.
Every single time. Mississippi Match 5, by the way, I know it's not going to make you a millionaire, but it'll make you a $100,000-aire because the jackpot is up to $225,000 for tonight's drawing in the Lance Tolbert Memorial Lottery game.
There we go, yeah.
Well, it can't be memorial. You're still with us.
Well, yeah, I hope for a long, long time. Yeah, it was funny.
Honorary.
It was funny because the Birdman hosted in place of Nelly this past weekend, and I had Hawk with me, and he loves Hawk. He's a bird guy, and Hawk is too, my German short-haired. And he was in there licking all over him and, saying hello and so happy to see him and all that. The dog was doing that to the Birdman, and he looked at me and he goes, Lance, I hope in your will we need to sit you down and get you a will written. And I'm sitting there, this is morbid, I used to hate doing this with clients. And he goes,
how
because
cheerful.
Somebody needs to be able to take care of your bird dog for you, and I'd like that person to be me. I'm like, man, I hope I live forever and ever, amen, but...
me too, definitely.
Yeah. I don't like thinking about wills and stuff like that,
Love having you on the planet. If you spend too much time thinking about dying, you forget to live.
Well, look, Amanda from Pike County, great little sayings this morning. Too much sugar for a dime. That was one that she shared that her Grandma Talk would say. And then you brought your ducks to a mighty poor pond. I love it. Man.
Oh, I heard the best undercover insult I've ever heard the other day. Read it online. It was a thread of great insults you could give that they won't realize was an insult until a few minutes later. This one was, I got to tell you, in this conversation, out of the 2 people involved, one of them is definitely smarter than you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, I don't. Put it into perspective, right? Yeah.
So, a lot of money to be won. A lot of money has been won. Cash 4, Cash Pop, Lotto America, Match 5. The 50X winners scratch off, the full of 5,000 scratch off, winners in all of those over the last day or two. Guess how much the full of 5,000's winner won?
Oh, 5,000?
That would be correct, yes.
I'm on my A game.
They continue to prove that they are experts at naming these games at the Mississippi Lottery.
Good names, too.
You can also, please remember to go get the app, the Mississippi Lottery app. Can't buy a ticket on there, but you can sure shoot and find out if you want. And enter the second chance drawings. You can just scan the ticket, and it enters it for you.
Make it easy.
On the app, yeah. I know that because my wife does it with an almost religious fervor. I promise that's the last time I'll ever use the word fervor.
I like it. It's kind of like befuddled and words like that. You don't hear them too often. When used, they have meaning and weight.
Well, there's a reason you don't hear them too often. It makes everybody turn their head like a golden retriever looking at a particularly weird duck and say, huh? So you stick to other words. Forgot that rule for a second. It's time for news. SuperTalk Mississippi News, Fox News, and then hour number 2 of mornings on this Friday morning here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Keep it here.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back. Super Talk Mississippi Mornings, presented by Community Bank, where they're more than just a place to manage your money. They're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors. For decades, they've been rooted in our community, helping families, small businesses, and individuals achieve their dreams. Whether it's opening your first savings account, planning for a brighter future, or growing your business, they're here for you every step of the way. They're dedicated to their customers, committed to your success, and always there when you need them. At Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC. My buddy Chris Smith messaged me last hour. I just saw it because I don't play on my phone while I'm on the air. That's a lie. We all know it's a lie, but it sounds productive, so let's go with it. Message said, when I was a kid, my family's favorite saying was, go get a switch.
Switch.
Yeah,
I remember those days.
The one time I got out of a whooping when I was a kid, my mom told me to go get a switch.
Yeah.
Well, I came in, I'm going to game this system. I came in with a twig about the size of a ink pen.
Yeah.
That did not calm her down. That did not improve the situation. She said, no, you go back out there and you get me a real switch, and if you don't bring something back that I think is acceptable, I'm going to go get one, and it's going to be twice as bad. I went out in the backyard and uprooted a small switch bush, the whole thing, and came dragging it into the house. She got to laughing so hard she forgot to whip me. It's the only time I ever got out of one.
My mom would chase me with a wooden spoon at times. You know?
Oh, those are the worst.
Get you, man. Let me tell you.
Does any of this happen anymore, by the way?
I don't know. I think they call the law on you or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, these days.
And as a result, crime is up.
Yeah.
You'll never convince me there's not a connection between those two.
It's amazing what a little discipline will do to crime, or just even at the lower level, just acting out and acting wrong. Sometimes you need some guardrails, right?
I was reminded, my dad was in law enforcement in Mississippi his entire life. Not his entire life, but he was in the National Guard. He started out working on the railroad, but went to the Highway Patrol, wound up as chief of the Uniform Division before he retired from there to take over as police chief in Macomb. So, long law enforcement career. Well, somebody in Pike County posted on Facebook, Barry Boyd, good friend of mine, posts all sorts of historical things, and one of them that he posted this week was a newspaper article about my dad speaking to the Rotary Club about how to deal with crime and what should be done, and his entire talk was about we need tent cities. We keep complaining that we don't want to raise taxes. The taxpayers don't want to pay more to build new jails. Okay, fine. Tents are like $30 at Walmart. Go put up some tents in a field, put a fence around it, and call it good.
There's no air conditioning, though, and that's a human rights violation.
You know what else is a human rights violation? Selling a 12-year-old fentanyl. Murdering somebody when you break into their house to steal their TV so you can pawn it to go get some crack. If we want to talk human rights violations, I could be here all day.
Well, that person stealing your stuff, if you wouldn't have had your rug ruffled up and he didn't fall down, then he wouldn't have had to sue you. He wouldn't have had to sue you, so.
That's the point we've gotten to now. But my dad's stance on that was something I agree with. Prison should be like mama sending you to get a switch. It should be something you never want to repeat again. You want to avoid it at all costs. Whatever you've got to do, however you've got to straighten up and act, you'll do it if you don't ever have to go back there.
I mean, we have quite a few listeners mentioning fly swatters were extremely effective.
Oh,
the
yeah.
wooden spoon still works. And
but my grandmother still called those fly flaps.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the point you're making, though, that we remember the discipline we received, and it's not something you want to really go back and revisit too much. When your tail is a little red and you're not feeling too good about yourself because you knew you got caught doing something wrong, you paid the price for it.
If you remember it every time you sit down for the next couple of days, it leaves an impression.
It does.
But we're going to have to make some tough choices. We're going to have to do some things that we have somehow managed to convince ourselves are horrible in order to get a handle on things. My opinion, freely admit that, my opinion, feathers being ruffled everywhere, but they're on birds that I don't particularly, care about their opinion. So
one of the things, I think one of the things is we've become a country that doesn't really pull together as much.
No.
It's much more filled with individuals, and we've been told for very long, hey, everybody matters. It's you, and me, and look at me. And I think we've gotten away a little bit from, treating others as maybe others want to be treated, maybe as you would like to be treated a little bit, and we're a little bit more self-interested, I think. Even though that is a fundamental flaw of humankind all over, it seems that we may be in a time where it's almost been expedited a bit, the push to be an individual. And sometimes that may be a good thing, but in other times it's going to be, you got to play the team, You got to be part of the team. You got to be an integral piece of the team. And not every part or person on that team is going to look the same, talk the same, be the same, have the same education, grew up the same, but they get together and they pull together for a common good. And I don't think we're doing that quite as much today.
Well, and part of the problem there is societal, but it's also involving our elected officials, because you led perfectly into the discussion this week on Wednesday. The Supreme Court ruled that the second majority black district drawn in Louisiana was unconstitutional.
Right. You really kind of a head scratcher. You think like you can't, you can't build districts based on race.
We've been doing it forever in this country.
Yeah, I mean,
since the 60s, we've been doing it forever. But here we go. We're off to the races now because, a perfect example. Gavin Newsom last night put a post up on X, 8:20 last night. He was up late for some reason. Well, although not really. He's in California, so it was like 5 o'clock there. His post reads, Louisiana's GOP governor, you got to put the name tag on there to make sure you know it's those nasty, dirty Republicans again. Louisiana's GOP governor just declared a state of emergency to cancel an election. Got cancel in all caps. Nothing was canceled. Governor Jeff Landry yesterday, declared a state of emergency and postponed the House primary till next month. That is not in any way, no matter how much you squint, no matter how bad the lighting in the room is, that is not canceling an election. The Senate primaries are going to go on. The rest of the primaries that were going to happen in the middle of this month will continue as scheduled. Only the one affected by the Supreme Court ruling has been postponed for a month, but no, he's canceled the election. Not for a storm, but to redraw maps so he can erase a historically black district. They're not even hiding it. MAGA is rigging elections to silence you. Gavin, there is a particular part of my body that you can smooch anytime you'd like, because I am so sick and tired of the semantics being used as a blunt force weapon in this country, particularly by the liberals. The election has not been canceled. They're not erasing a historically black district. The Supreme Court said it violates the Constitution. So you're far violating the Constitution, Gavin. That's what you're saying when you come out with this kind of rhetoric and nonsense. Then you have Representative Kabir Karyam, chairman of the Mississippi Legislative Black Caucus. After the Supreme Court ruling said, now I want you to parse this. I want you to go through this and think about this in terms of how things are taken today in America right now. He said, quote, "Our history is not written in ink, it's written in blood."
That's such bull. You know, I know my history. That's wrong.
He continues, "Let me be clear to anyone who thinks black people are just going to sit quietly while our hard-fought gains are stripped away. You got to be out of your mind. So it's written in blood and we're going to fight." I wonder what the implication is there.
The hard-fought gains. So let's just look at one district, the second, that is predominantly black. And has that helped? I mean,
right.
Has that done any good? I'd like to know every racially based district in this country and how it has actually benefited the race that is there, that you consider the majority. How is that anything good for anyone? I thought segregation and those things were things of the past. You know, so you're saying you're encouraging people to live in these districts because that's the color you are. Oh, by the way, yeah, that's a good idea.
It's bad unless it helps me. That's the general attitude. We'll continue. I got one or two more quick things to hit on this before we drop it for today, because my blood pressure is high enough on a normal day as it is. We continue on mornings right after this. Keep it here.
Good morning from the Venable Glass.
Good morning, everybody. Time to wake up.
Time to shine!
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Rising up, back on the street. Did my time, took my chances. Went the distance, now I'm back on my feet. Just a man and his will to survive. So many times it happens to
Every time running up those steps goes through my mind every time I hear this song.
We're on it right now on the video, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard the story that they didn't have a permit to film there, so they went out there and filmed it real quick in one take and ran before the police could show up.
It looks like it. I mean, that's always the opening cred to that, when they're walking so fast that, you know, it's like, are you in a hurry or something?
Yes,
yeah, but they are. Yeah.
They were avoiding trouble with the police to make that movie. Good times. Okay, we were talking about this. A couple of things I want to continue and make sure I get in. The chairman of the Mississippi Democratic Party, Jackie Taylor, said the ruling raises concerns about voting rights and representation. We're not going back to 1965, he said. We're not going back to a time where intimidation, fear, and power decided who got to vote and who did not. And that leans into, and I've seen it put much more blatantly by other people, this is not taking the right to vote away from anyone.
No.
That Supreme Court ruling. Now, it's being presented as such because that's going to get you fired up. No. everybody still gets to vote. One person, one vote. We just are not going to. The Supreme Court said we couldn't rig things to make it easier for one particular group over everybody else. That seems kind of commonsensical, but they are working overtime to spin this every way they can. Now, I want to make sure, I don't know, you may have heard it, but it was a loud interview, but Gerard had Representative Robert Johnson from over in Natchez on this week, and they got into a vociferous discussion about this. I have known Robert Johnson so long that I accidentally keep referring to him as Senator Johnson because, you know, he was a state senator from 99 to 2006 to somewhere in there, and then swapped over, and now he's a representative and has been. Good man. I've interviewed him. I've known him for a quarter of a century or more. Robert, I did not mean to make us both feel as old as I just did. I apologize for that severely. Good man. Got some good. Do I agree with him on everything? No.
He tells you what he feels and what he believes is right, and he does it in a way where, you know, it comes out, you know, he means it, and he covers his facts. He's very, you know, very detail-oriented. Always enjoy his perspective from the other side of the fence.
What I find interesting is, though, because, you know, Robert Johnson, good guy. Love the guy. Always have. We got along from the moment we met. But if he was a Republican instead of a Democrat, he would be dismissed and derided by the Democrats just like everyone else. Yeah. And more proof that we're just in a horrible place. No. We cannot have this singular basis for how we judge things. The world is not like that. Never has been, never will be. We have plenty of black Republicans who have been elected to various offices around the country. We don't want to talk about that. No. We don't want to discuss that because that brings up the fact that, you know, that was a win in a Republican district. Obviously, the Republican candidate won. So you're telling me that it comes down to the best candidate wins no matter how the districts are drawn? Well, we don't want to talk about that either. There are flaws in the logic there. But the bottom line is this. The election in Louisiana was not canceled. It was postponed for a month so they could try to make it constitutional after the Supreme Court ruled Wednesday that what they've been doing violates the U.S. Constitution. They did not quibble on it. It was a 6-3 vote. That's it. There's nowhere else you can take it. If they had gone ahead and held the primary in 2 weeks, it would have immediately been contested in court, and they would have wound up having to do it over again. Because it's really hard to fight a Supreme Court precedent. So you might as well go ahead and get it done right the first time. Just to show you how close up against the wire they were, early voting was supposed to start for the primary tomorrow in Louisiana, pushed it back a month. But you've got leaders of the Democratic Party explaining that they have canceled an election to keep progress down and to take away the vote of some people. You can vote for whoever you want to. Yeah, I mean, no one is guaranteed to have exactly who they want down to the fifth decimal point on the ballot.
Well, I mean, that district, let's just say the second district has about 750,000 voters, actually 740. You have about 300,000 that turn out, and that's basically, the percentage rate that holds up. So you're telling me that those other, 450,000 people have been told you can't vote? Or do they just choose not to? Because it's their, as we put it, it's their candidate. It's the guy that's been there, Benny Thompson, for many, many years. So out of that district, 740+ thousand people, 300 less thousand voted in 2020. And those, like I said, you can look at these statistics. So why did the other 450,000 people not vote if they're in an area that, they feel comfortable getting to the polls and voting the way they want?
Well,
but they chose not to because they chose not to, right? They chose not to participate. So nobody forced them not to.
Sounds like disenfranchisement to me.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was a bad thing. I thought that if people don't have someone who aligns with them very well on the ballot to the point to where they don't even feel motivated to go to the polls and vote, well, that's a bad thing, right? Well, that's the current situation in District 2. And to be honest, we have seen declining results in some elections for a while now. I think we need a good shakeup. Overall, across the board.
Well, there's a lot of distrust these days in politics because of the way the money flows in. I think that from the lobbying side, the PAC side, all that, a lot of average folks like you and I want to go vote for who we think is the most honest and the best and can represent their constituency, whoever that may be, the best. And when you start adding up all the other stuff, though, all this money's involved in lobbyists, and my vote really just doesn't matter. Well, it really does, but as you were saying, that disenfranchisement is alive and well, and just look at voting trends.
They're looking at going away from it in Louisiana. That was mentioned by Governor Landry, but that's a separate issue a little bit down the road. What about the concept of open primaries where everybody's on there?
I have had this conversation with several from the Democrat side who have told me directly that going into the primary scenario where they must go in and vote and basically be told this is where you vote Democrat and this is where you vote Republican. They've gone the Democrat route because they've got to go to church with these folks and they got to live in the neighborhood with these folks and they're friends, but yet they know that if they went over to that Republican line, there's going to be problems. And these are the same color people. This is not, white folks doing this to black or black doing this to white. These are these same color people. So the race baiting conversation, from my perspective, hearing it firsthand from our own listeners and our own constituency, it leads me to believe down a different path that peer pressure has a lot to do sometimes.
Yes, and a lot of that comes back to the fact that it's no longer acceptable when somebody asks you, how did you vote, to say none of your business. Because the old proverb, the old expression of good fences make good neighbors is completely ignored these days. Your business is everybody else's business. That's and if you don't think so, what's wrong with you? You're a horrible, we just don't like you. Nobody likes you now. Because you don't want to blab every single thing you do and every single opinion you have all over the world. You're a horrible human being. What? Mm-hmm. It's nobody's business. That's why there's a curtain on the ballot box booth. That's why there's a curtain behind you so nobody can see who you're voting for, because it's nobody's business but yours. But peer pressure has become a big part of it.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
And we have covered this several times, I think. It's still a narrative issue, right? I mean, if every issue is polarized for the left or polarized to the furthest right, there's a lot of people in the middle out there that just don't want to play the game.
And as a result, you wind up with a majority of the district staying home on Election Day.
There we go.
Because they're done. They've had enough, and they do not want to go to the polls and pick from what in their mind is a choice between bad and try to figure out which one is the least bad for them personally. So they just don't bother. That kind of disenfranchisement's fine, though.
Oh, yeah, of course. It just has to fit the narrative.
Is there any way we can get the national slogan and include the Latin word for hypocrisy in it? Because I think it would apply these days. It's just me. When we come back after the break, we got a good guest coming up. Author, former Secret Service agent. I'm going to ask him about something he's not prepared for me to ask him about, but I'm going to do it anyway. Ken Valentine joins us next here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Keep it here.
From the Seabrook.
The Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Start your day right.
Good morning, America. How are you?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. SuperTalk, Mississippi mornings on a Friday morning, first day of May, 2026. And we are honored to be joined now by author, leadership consultant, and former Secret Service Special Agent in Charge, Ken Valentine. He joins us here on the show. Good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, definitely. It's an honor to have you here. And the Secret Service kind of been in the news this week a little bit, haven't they?
You know, this is how I know that things are not going well. I keep getting invited to be on news shows and talk about it. And, you know, I keep telling them, hey, it'd be great to get a call from you guys when things are going well. But unfortunately, this is the way it works. And I get calls when the Secret Service does something stupid or something happens and it raises those questions. But it's actually a pleasure to be with you and love your show. So thanks for having me on.
Well, and we're going to get into some non-Secret Service stuff in just a little bit because I'm going to hit you with something you're probably not expecting me to hit you with, but you'll know about it. I'm not.
All right, come on.
I'm blindsiding you in a good way, but let's talk about this week or last week on Saturday at the Correspondents' Dinner and what happened there. And I've seen some very light criticism, but all in all, it seems like they executed their duty pretty well when that guy charged in, didn't they?
Well, in contrast to Butler, this looks like it was set up very well. And so if the Secret Service will simply follow the protocol, the basics of security that we were all taught in the first place, then things tend to go well. And I think that's what you saw happen here. The guy that tried to get in was stopped at the outer perimeter. There've certainly been criticisms about how the security was set up and, you know, how close he might have been, in terms of the fact that they heard the shots. You know, it was that close. And, I would kind of brush that off and say, if you've ever tried to do security at one of these major hotels, and for better or worse, I've been to that hotel dozens of times, done security there, supervised events there. It was the same hotel where Hinckley shot Reagan right outside. So it's a known quantity. It's a well-established place that we have a good working relationship with, and they set it up just right. You know, we go into these events, these hotels, these public places, if you will, and we're coming in with a scalpel. We're trying to do security in the least restrictive manner possible and yet still get maximum protection. And I think you saw that. I think that's what works. We've heard people complain that, you know, I walked right through the hotel without going through security. And it's like, well, you're welcome. We set it up that way so that you could do that, so that it would be least intrusive to the public. We don't shut down hotels unless we just absolutely have to. And so, it was close enough to be heard, but not close enough that he would get shots off. We have a ring system. That was the outer ring. And so the system worked. They followed the protocol and it worked.
Well, and that's the thing. We are in a much more complaint-intensive environment in America right now than I think ever before. Everyone is going to find something to complain about, and I think that partially comes down to one of my pet hobby horses that I get on all the time. We seem to be so focused on the process that we forget to judge by the results. And in this case, the result was threat was neutralized. He got one shot off. He got nowhere close to any of the officials. I call that a win.
Yeah, I've been on a number of shows saying that this was a win and had that short debate about, how close is too close. And you go back to the Reagan shooting back in, 81, I think it was. The bad guy bounces a bullet off the limo. It hits Reagan. Reagan survives, and people, back then called that a win, and so we certainly wouldn't call that a win. I mean, there were lessons to be learned, but the lesson to be learned here, unlike Butler, is that follow the protocol and do the job and things will work out. And that's what you saw. Butler, different story. Butler, they didn't follow the protocol. They didn't stick with the methodology that's worked for all these years, and you saw the result. So, good kudos to the Secret Service for sticking with their guns, sticking with the protocol. The methodology works.
With a trained eye, with an experienced eye, which you have in this world, Was the situation at Butler as big of a mess as it looked to me like it was in terms of the security and how everything was handled?
I'm afraid it may have been. And, I say that reluctantly because I've been very critical about the Secret Service's effort there. And, that is not a win. When you've been given the privilege and the duty, the responsibility of protecting someone, and they leave an event early bleeding, you failed. And that's just all there is to that. You failed, and now we have to figure out how and why you failed. And, they sent 2 agents to do that advance who had never done an outdoor event before. The lead and the side agent, is my understanding, had never done a large outdoor rally before, and so had never had to take into consideration long threats and all the things that go into that. This is not rocket science. It's not hard, but you have to have done it before. You have to have gone through that mental process, hopefully with a mentor, someone who's teaching and training you along the way, and they didn't have that there. So, yeah, big fail. This was, again, it's not hard. It's just that there are some ways to go about this. It's like driving a car. It looks easy, but there's just ways to go about it that are effective and work. And when you do those things, it tends to go your way. And they didn't have that.
Everyone always misses the distinction between simple and easy. Those two are not the same. And we kind of keep getting in trouble. Now, from your judgment, looking at what happened in Butler and looking at what happened last weekend, do you think they have kind of righted the ship and gotten back to those basics you were talking about with the Secret Service?
I hope so. I would like to think that Butler was the exception to the rule for the Secret Service, but they do have a number of problems facing the agency, and one of them is the maturity level. And, you look at the seasoning of agents, which is what it really takes before you get to the president's detail. You should have gone through a period of seasoning. Back in the day, before I went to the president's detail, it was unheard of to get there before you'd been on the job 5 to 8 years, sometimes longer. We're seeing now the rotation, this necessary shift, being lowered to just a couple of years, and that is not good from a maturation standpoint. That where you are adding tools to your toolkit as you go. You're figuring things out. Some of these complexities and sites, and they just don't have that. So you have that. At the same time, you have a mass exodus within the Secret Service because it's just not an easy job. It's a job that requires you to be flexible all the time. You have to be on the go all the time, and the kind of the rhythm of protection has been floating upward for many, many years. So, it used to be this nice balance. I remember an older agent out of Chattanooga when I came on, when I was being interviewed, he said, "Hey, the great thing about the Secret Service is this. You do investigations. That's your meat and potatoes. That's what you do, and that's where you cut your teeth and learn kind of the methodology of doing things. It's a methodical job. You do your investigations. About the time you get sick of doing investigations, they send you on a trip to do protection. And you take that same mindset with you to do protection, but it's that methodology. And then about the time you get sick of being gone from home, they send you back and you start all over again. Well, now there are no investigations. They don't have time to do investigations. It's trip after trip after trip. And, after a couple of years of that, agents are saying, what are my options? And so with the Secret Service, your option is go back on another trip. Get back out on the road. We need you in Los Angeles. We need you in, Durban, South Africa. We need you, the next trip. And so you're seeing this, a very young group of agents that are being beat to death with trips and no rest in between. And so, they're leaving. And, right now the setup is that they can jump to any other federal agency without trouble. And so the joke within the federal government is that the Secret Service is now the feeder for every federal law enforcement agency out there, because all of these people that they're hiring, former Secret Service with a couple of years on the job. And they went, they checked that box, they got beat up, and they said, hey, I can go to ABC federal agency, keep the same pay, the same pension, I got a car, a gun, a badge, and I'm doing criminal investigation work. And I'm getting the same pay that the guy next door who's still in the Secret Service is doing, and we don't see him or her. They're gone all the time. And so, my goodness, it's a pickle for the Secret Service. They're going to have to get in front of this. They have not gotten in front of that in many years now. So it's not getting any better.
And that's going to be really hard to get back in front of, because once you fall to second place, you got to work 3 times as hard to get it back out in the lead where you're supposed to be to make things function, appropriately. We're up against a break. Can you stick around through the break? Because I want to talk to you about science fiction technology, because you have an involvement in something that I would consider to be under that umbrella, BMRT, and I'd love to talk to you about it if you can stick around.
You bet. Glad to.
We'll continue with Ken Valentine.
Good morning from the Venable.
Good morning to you there.
Okay, up and at 'em. Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. Super Talk Mississippi Mornings, joined by former Secret Service Special Agent in Charge and author of Cheating Death, Ken Valentine, and the accompanying devotional book, Staying Sharp. I love that. You even took some lessons out of the book that was filled with lessons. So that's doing some good work there, Ken.
Hey, thanks. We're never too old to keep learning, and that was the idea behind that. I took Cheating Death, and one of the chapters was called Support and Challenge, where I'm talking about the need to surround yourself by, people who are going to not only support you and be cheerleaders for you, but also challenge you and sharpen you. And that turned into the second book, Staying Sharp, where I say, hey, you if you're going to sharpen a knife, and I was a Boy Scout, you sharpen both sides of the blade. And when we do that, and when we get and stay sharp, then we're useful. And in my opinion, that as a believer, you're useful in the hands of the Lord if you're sharp. So get sharp.
I love that. That kind of goes hand in hand with the old expression that if you are the smartest person in the room, you need to find a new room. You learn more being around people that are going to teach you something, and that's usually not a simple process. Now, having said that, this is probably going to surprise some people. You are on the board of advisors for something coming out that looks like science fiction, and from their website, it's groundbreaking quantum physics technology. This is a detection technology, right?
It is, yeah. And, it's something that's actually been with us all along. We're just learning now how to kind of listen. And, as one of the founders said, God's been speaking to us all along through the elements and through the molecules. We're just figuring out how to listen to that. And, going back to some of the greats, Tesla and Einstein, they all thought this was possible. But nobody's been able to figure out exactly how to do it. And once we figured out, and it's called molecular resonance, these molecules are giving off a resonance or kind of a vibration or a sound. They're each uniquely singing to us or speaking to us. Figuring out how to listen to that, how to detect it, and then identify it has been the trick. And what we've figured out, the patented technology, is that we can not only identify them uniquely, but now we have the ability to do that at a distance. And that's been the missing link is, you can put elements and molecules in a sterile environment where there's no static or outside noise. And, some of these universities and the military can get in there and listen and detect it. But as soon as you introduce ambient noise, other distractions, if you will, from the technology, they lose that signal, they lose that sound. You introduce distance to the equation, and it's gone. And what we figured out is how to do that over distance. So it's thrilling, it's exciting. It's kind of scary, but it really is a neat ability to add to our toolbox.
Now, this has, from everything that I'm reading about it, has almost unlimited potential for uses in various fields. It's, you hear detection and you think, oh, they're spying on me. Spoilers, yeah, they are. But they're not even using this to do that. That's been going on for a while. But this can be used in everything from security to healthcare to preventing threats before they become threats. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife of technology in a way, isn't it?
Well, it is. You're really getting a picture of what's out there where you couldn't see that before. It's almost like having a microscope through walls, through water, through whatever we put up. I mean, if you've got shipping containers coming in from Mexico or Canada or wherever, from China, we can see through those. We can listen through them to determine what's inside. And, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for drugs, you're looking for biohazards, we can, we defeat the metal in those shipping containers readily. It works through water, it works through dirt. We've got depth to it, we've got height to it, so it's pretty exciting, and it could really be a game changer. I was brought on because of the security background and the ability to detect gunpowder, for instance, at a greater distance. At Butler, if we'd had BMRT in place, we would have picked this guy up getting out of his vehicle, and we could have gone out to interrogate, interview, stop him from getting where he got. That's just one way to stop that. There were a bunch of ways to stop Butler. That wouldn't be the only one, but it's a great technology for detection. And the exciting thing, my wife went through breast cancer. We can detect cancer so early that it's not showing up in any other signs and symptoms. So it's got a lot of applications. It's very exciting, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Well, you can find out more about that and about Ken Valentine at KennethValentine.com. It's actually on your website talking about that. BMRT, you can find out about it at BMRT.io. Ken, I have enjoyed this. I wish we had more time. We'll have to have you back on, and we won't even mention the Secret Service and that kind of stuff, and we'll just talk more about this. I'd love to have a whole interview about this.
That is a deal. Thank you so much.
Anytime, sir. Ken Valentine, a pleasure and an honor to have you. When we come back, our old friend Doug.
Wake up! Rise and shine!
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross.
Nice early morning surprise.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back. Super Talk, Mississippi Mornings. Last hour of mornings brought to you by the folks at MWG Employer Services. You can call them today at 601-206-7966 or go to MWGEmployerServices.com to find out more. We are joined now by my friend, the president and CEO of the Mississippi Center for Public Policy, the one and only Mr. Douglas Carswell, on the show this morning. How you doing, Douglas?
Good morning, Dave. Good morning, Mississippi. It's wonderful to be here.
You came over here, you moved into Mississippi, you acclimated once we got some fried catfish in you. And then you look up and the king and queen have chased you over to America.
Isn't it wonderful? The King Charles III was in Washington, D.C. to celebrate 250 years of your birthday. Isn't it fantastic? Isn't it wonderful?
It was really neat to see that and to see there's not a grudge at this point, I think, is probably the best way to put it.
I think if his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather came back, he would have to admit it's been a great success. I mean, America has gone from being an experiment to being, I think, the greatest successful republic in history. It's, I think we should pause. We take it for granted. But wow, what an amazing experiment in human history. It's really quite an important moment.
Well, and, it's so important to get outside perspectives, because you're right. If you're born here, if you're raised here, if you spend your entire life in America, you take a lot of things for granted that the rest of the world is looking at and going, wow, really?
You create a completely experimental country based on principles and ideals, and you largely live up to those ideals, and it works to the point where 250 years later, the world is basically led by you because your way of life is the best way of life. It's quite impressive.
Boy, we're going to start getting the hate text now because Douglas said it's working. But it is. It might not be the public opinion, but it does work.
Well, you live in China and try and text on a public radio station saying it's not working. I mean, this is the point. You can live in America and you can criticize America and you take it for granted because most people can't live this way. But yeah, it's wonderful to be here. It's great to see the King here. And you know what? I'm a big believer in the English-speaking world working together, Australia, America, New Zealand, Canada, Britain. So it's wonderful to see that.
Yeah, definitely. And we need those relationships. I've been reminded in my head several times over the last few months about the old statement, no man is an island. Famous quote there. Same thing applies to countries. No country can be an island. That never ends well.
Yeah, and I think we can kind of see that now. I mean, although America can do a lot of things by herself economically, if she isn't trading with the world, you pay the price directly in your grocery basket when you go shopping. We need to be, I think, we need to be open to the world in terms of trade, not immigration. I'm a big skeptic of uncontrolled immigration, but I think that being connected to the world, working with allies where they exist to deal with the bad guys, that's always been the successful way.
Well, you can work with your neighbor, you can work with your neighborhood, with your city, with your state without inviting them all to move into your house.
Absolutely. Totally.
That's the difference between the two concepts.
Totally. And, American leadership has always been about getting other like-minded countries to work together with America. Look at how effectively America did that in the first Gulf War, the second Gulf War. And, when it comes to dealing with Iran, I think that America is and needs to work with others. I think there's a big problem with some supposed American allies, frankly, being lazy. A lot of members of NATO not pulling their weight. We need to fix that. But I think the basic principle that America should work with like-minded allies is a good one. It's good for us in America, and it's good for the world.
I think you're exactly right. As usual, I agree with Douglas. Now, let's get into one of the big stories of the week. As you know, we have a special session coming up to redraw for right now, apparently Supreme Court districts in the state. Do you think that'll be expanded after the Supreme Court ruling on Wednesday?
I think it could. I mean, just for your listeners' benefit, there's a Supreme Court ruling in Louisiana that basically said racial gerrymandering isn't acceptable under the Constitution. Now, to give you a quick summary of that, gerrymandering it's a quite distasteful process, really, where politicians choose their voters by drawing the map a certain way. I think in a democracy, voters should choose their representatives. But when you have gerrymandering, it works the other way around. The lines of districts are drawn to favour particular interests. Now, the Supreme Court said you can't gerrymander to preference racial groups. And I think that's a good thing. I think, whatever the historic injustices and unfairnesses of the past, in America in 2026, all people should be treated equally, and you shouldn't allow people to draw boundaries to favour particular racial groups. It's kind of condescending anyway, isn't it? This idea that, you belong to a group. So I think racial gerrymandering, I think getting rid of it is a good thing. The question really is, what are the implications for Mississippi? Now, there was a case, I think it was Justice Judge Sharon Aycock ruled basically saying you could have this kind of gerrymandering with reference to the Supreme Court districts. And we have to see the legal process play out, but I suspect that's not going to survive contact with this new federal Supreme Court ruling. I think the really intriguing question then is, are there maybe congressional district boundaries in Mississippi that need to be redrawn to eliminate racial gerrymandering? And has there been racial gerrymandering in other southern states? And actually, could this have quite a big impact on the composition of Congress in D.C.? And I think we need to wait and see, but I think this could be quite significant.
Well, and I was asked this week after that ruling, was in one of multiple conversations about this, and someone asked me, they looked at me and said, okay, why can't we just redraw the congressional districts and just draw a big plus sign in the state, and those 4 quadrants are the 4 congressional districts, and we move on?
Well, they're kind of on to something. I wouldn't quite do it literally geographically, but this is how I would do it in an ideal scenario. I would draw up the boundaries, getting a body that's completely dispassionate, not affiliated to the Democrats or the Republicans, and certainly not one that looks at race in terms of redistricting, and basically says what would be a logical way to divide up the state into 4 parts based on, you all know that if you're down on the coast, there's a cultural commonality with people down on the coast. If you're in DeSoto County, there's a cultural commonality with other parts of the Northeast. If you're in the Delta, there's a cultural commonality with other parts of the Delta. I think a dispassionate body could draw up the state into 4 distinct parts, a roughly equal population size. And I think that should be the way we should set about drawing the districts. This idea that you should draw a district, and I mean, look at some of the boundaries in the Mississippi House. You've got these sort of lines of districts that are clearly designed to include or exclude certain segments of the electorate. And I don't think that's healthy. I think we need to get rid of that way of approaching it. Whether we do it overnight or it takes time, we simply shouldn't draw up boundaries to favor political outcomes.
Well, and going back to Louisiana, District 2 is the one that was in question. I don't know if you've seen the map of the District 2 as it was drawn. It's to give you perspective, it starts in Shreveport and snakes all the way across the state to Baton Rouge. That was purposeful.
It's clearly a case of politicians choosing their voters, whereas in a democracy, voters should choose their politicians. Now, it's a real problem in Louisiana. I think California has had some of the most egregious examples of this in the past, but we shouldn't do it here in Mississippi. The basic premise should be that a district should be trying to create a geographic zone that captures a roughly proportional number of people, and that you could argue that the boundaries of that district should reflect commonalities that people, common interests that people within that district have. I could understand an argument for saying, the Delta should all be in one coterminous district. But the idea that you should draw boundaries on the basis of race, we've got to get rid of that now.
Well, I think you're exactly right, and that's the Supreme Court agrees with you. So you're in pretty good territory here, Douglas.
Isn't this interesting? The Supreme Court, I think, has been remarkably good on this issue, on fair voting. And I think, actually, this Supreme Court has done a lot of really, really good things, and this is the latest example of the Supreme Court doing things that actually I think most Americans would have liked them to have been doing over the past 30 or 40 years.
We're with Douglas Carswell. Can you stick around?
I'd love to.
Fantastic. We'll continue with Douglas Carswell right after this on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Keep it here.
Oh, yeah, what condition I condition was painted April Fool. The big black letters on my dead inside.
Good morning from the Venable.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Here we go. Now back to Mornings with Richard Cross.
Now that's entertainment. My sweet Juanita, what are you up to? My Juanita, I said Juanita, my sweet Juanita, what are you up to?
Welcome back. SuperTalk Mississippi Mornings, presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community. Go to communitybank.net for more information. We were talking about the potential of the special called session, the special session, possibly being expanded to include redrawing the congressional districts like we were talking. But there is a difference between that call being expanded and anything actually really happening. Do you think there's an appetite in the Mississippi legislature to look at the congressional districts?
I just don't know. I mean, I think let's see how this plays out. We don't even really know if there's going to be this special session. There's a legal process. We know what the Supreme Court said about the Louisiana case. We've yet to see the legal implications of that play out with regard to the Mississippi Supreme Court districting, and whether or not that then has implications for Mississippi's congressional districts. Let's just see how it plays out.
Well, it is a row of dominoes, and they have to all fall before we get to that point. But the first one, the biggest one, is already over now for the Supreme Court. We throw that out all the time about Supreme Court rulings and opinions, and I think we sometimes forget legally just how much weight that carries, though, because that is an enormous step and an enormous adjustment to how business has been done in America politically for decades.
Yeah, I mean, for several decades now, there's been an implicit assumption that you can racially gerrymander, and everyone sort of turns a blind eye to it, and you get these, this is both at a state districting level, the state Supreme Court districting level, the congressional districting level. If you can no longer do that, you can potentially insist upon the redrawing of a lot of boundaries. I think big implications. But it's good for democracy. The fundamental principle in a democracy is that voters should choose their representatives. Gerrymandering, particularly racial gerrymandering, means that politicians choose their voters. It's absolutely wrong.
Well, I know you're a proponent of beneficial change. And change is a word that scares a lot of people. We want things to stay just like they've always been. But my wife, who was born and raised on Grand Isle in Louisiana, had shared a statement with me, an expression, and I think it fits perfectly here. You can't steer a boat until it's underway. You've got to be going somewhere before you can make any adjustments to your course. And we forget that sometimes. If you just wind up staying still, dead in the water, nothing's going to improve, right?
Yeah, I mean, change can be good. You can have change for the worse. Look at my old country. There are lots of examples of a bad change, but I think Mississippi's story is actually a story of good change. If you look at what's happened to Mississippi in terms of the economy, for the first time in living memory, more people are moving to Mississippi than leaving Mississippi. Many of your listeners will know children and grandchildren of theirs who've gone to Nashville or Austin or Atlanta. We're now moving to a world where you're not going to have to move out of Mississippi to enjoy a good life and have good opportunities. We're starting to see masses of inward investment coming in. We're starting to see real growth. This didn't happen because we stayed the same. This happened because we had leaders like Philip Gunn. I ran into him the other day, and it reminded me just how much of the improvement and progress we're seeing in Mississippi is because of men like him being willing to actually champion change. We've got a governor who's led change. We've had people pushing for change in the legislature. We shouldn't be afraid of good change if it's founded in good free market principles. We need more of that change. Whether it's competition in our politics by getting rid of racial gerrymandering, or competition in our school system by getting rid of the cartel that prevents you from sending a kid to your school choice. Change is good. Change is what makes sure your grandkids have a better life than you do.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of times you can't predict the outcome of a change. You can do a pretty good job and you have a good idea, or you don't make the change, but you have to make that change and then let it play out like we were talking about with the redistricting to see where you wind up. And if it's bad, well, you change again. That's the beautiful part of it.
Yeah. Put it another way, maybe a good way of saying this is cartels are always bad. If you rig a market, whether it's a political market through gerrymandering or an education market by not having school choice, or the healthcare market, if you have certificate of needs, any cartel is always going to be bad. So long as you have choice and competition and accountability, change will always end up doing the right thing.
Well, it's the difference between restrictive rules and guardrails. If you go bowling, I don't know if you're a bowler. I'm suspecting not, but you might surprise me. I don't know. You do it all the time. You have the little rubber rails you can pull up that kind of cover the gutters. For the little kids, when they go out to bowl, they roll the ball.
I
and
have
it
an
just bounces.
embarrassing admission. I have been bowling, and I'm one of those people who needs the guardrails when they go bowling.
But that's the thing. The guardrails, that's the way I feel that government should work. It should be guardrails to keep us traveling in the right direction to get the result we're trying to get. It shouldn't be restrictive and keep you from moving forward.
Yeah.
The guardrails in bowling don't keep you from throwing the ball, knocking the pins down. It just helps you get there.
Well, actually, in my case, they didn't really help me get the pins, but that's an exception. I take your point. It's a good metaphor. It's a good metaphor.
I have got to take you bowling now.
Just so long as no one's filming, we'll be fine.
Yeah, no, it'd just be you and me. We'll pick some place. We'll go out of town and find a little bowling
There's
alley.
a great bowling alley in Fondren, actually. Soon after my daughter arrived here, we took her there for her birthday, and a great little bowling alley in Fondren. I can't remember the name of it, but it's wonderful.
There's a knack to it. Once you get it, yeah, you'll be bowling, 50, 60 pins per game. I started there too. Everyone does. But I don't know how we got off on bowling. Oh yeah, it was my fault. We got off on bowling. But the thing that we need to keep in mind with all of this, because for the past, I'd say 5 to 10 years, it has been a tidal wave of one change after another, it feels like. Some have been great, some have been good, some haven't, we'll say, and be charitable with it. But they're all necessary in the long run, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think many of the changes we've seen in Mississippi are for the better, and I think many of our problems in Mississippi are because of a lack of change. I know that in this session there was real frustration that nothing was done to improve the alcohol distribution system in Mississippi. Why can't we change that? Why do we have a single warehouse in Mississippi through which every bottle of liquor has to pass? It's crazy. You need change to get rid of restrictions like that. So yeah, I mean, I think this is why fundamental principles are so good, because if change is rooted in good fundamental principles, whether it's the founding principles from 250 years ago or the free market principles, if change is rooted in that, it's always going to be a good thing. Change for the sake of change is not a good idea, but change on the basis of good principle is needed. But, I think that Mississippi's prospects are looking really bright, but we need to go a lot further with some of the changes that we propose. And I was slightly disappointed this session, actually, there wasn't more change. That a failure to give parents power with school choice, failure to do anything about the alcohol distribution system. I think our biggest problem in Mississippi is a lack of change rather than too much change.
Well, and people are change averse because it's scary. You get used to the way things have been, and you keep going with it until, in the case of alcohol and the alcohol warehouse, it basically implodes, and then you realize, oh, wait, maybe that wasn't the right way to do things after all.
But inertia always comes with an excuse. There's always a justification for doing nothing. And I listened to some of the excuses about why we can't allow people to be trusted to distribute alcohol without the Mississippi state government making it pass through a warehouse. One of the arguments that you need it to go through a warehouse to collect tax. I mean, that's obviously absurd. The taxes are collected in all sorts of ways without having to get everything through one point. And again, we see similar arguments when it comes to education. This idea that you have to have tax dollars flow through a state-run education system to get good outcomes. It's as ridiculous as the argument that you need the government to be distributing alcohol. But you always have the status quo arguing very powerfully why people shouldn't be allowed choice. And I think if you if you want to see improvement in Mississippi, you have to trust people. You have to give them more choice. And whether it's getting rid of gerrymandered congressional districts or allowing people to take that very bold and frightening move of maybe going online and ordering liquor for themselves without having to do it with government's permission. Trust the people. It's been working in America for 250 years.
And hopefully it will continue to work and continue to improve and work better. Douglas, it's always too short when we have you in here. We always do 30 minutes, and it feels like about 5 to me. So I always enjoy talking to you, and I'll look forward already to the next time we get the chance.
Thanks, Dave. Been a joy.
Always fun talking to Douglas Carswell. That's a knowledgeable human being, by the way. If you ever get the chance to bend his ear, enjoy it and treasure it, because he's got a good brain. Man, he does. We'll continue on this Friday morning right after this.
From the SuperTalk, Mississippi. Third Cross. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Yeah!
Welcome back. SuperTalk, Mississippi. Mornings presented by Community Bank. A Community Bank, they're here for every part of your financial journey. If you're looking to manage your personal finances, they have banking services that make it simple, secure, and tailored to you. If you're ready to grow your business, they offer expert guidance and custom solutions to help your business thrive. If you're dreaming of a new home, they have mortgage specialists there to make the process seamless for you, all designed with you in mind. They're more than just a bank. They're your partner for life's biggest moments at Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Did you see the news out of Washington State from yesterday afternoon, Lance?
What happened?
Stabbing at a high school in Tacoma, Washington. 5 people had to go to the hospital. I think 4 of them were critically injured. And some minor injuries to the assailant who was arrested, who was a student at the high school. So 6 people injured. When are we going to have sensible knife control in this country? Yeah. You don't hear that, do you?
No, you don't. And, the good thing about having guns is, it's our right. The gun doesn't do the damage, I mean, there's plenty of weapons out there. I mean, a dog. What are you going? A dog can bite somebody. A dog can take somebody down. I mean, you got knives and guns and all this stuff. So no, I'm a gun owner, proud gun owner, proud gun. I wouldn't say aficionado. I know how to use them. Always been around them. And you don't point them at somebody else. You don't pull a knife out and point it at anybody else. It's just common knowledge. But yet, too often that isn't the case. I want to blame the instrument, not the person.
Yes, that has been the case for quite some time, and it's wrong. That's the same argument I keep making. You've heard me say it before about AI, artificial intelligence. It's evil, it's horrible, it needs to go. Well, no, it's just a tool, just like anything else. It's an advanced tool, but it's a tool.
Oh, it is. I mean, there's the reality of AI is anything. It's a tool, and how you use it is going to be based on your not necessarily just your understanding, but your morals, your ethics, your values. The power put in the wrong hands is always going to be used, incorrectly or for the benefit of the self rather than for the good. So you hope with anything. The same with the Second Amendment. You got the right to bear arms. It's not like one person could defend a country, but 300 million people or so that carry guns. It kind of makes you wonder if the federal government ever turned on you. There'd be a lot of folks out there that could defend themselves as a group. And then, your personal protection. And everybody has the right to protect themselves, their family.
Yes.
And so, taking that right away is something that I would be 100% against,
Well, I think our biggest problem with the violence in America right now is really exemplified. You're on X all the time. I'm sure you've seen some posts about this, the whole thing about the red button and the blue button. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
And it's an old thing. They didn't just come up with this. There are 2 buttons, a red button and a blue button. If you press the blue button and a majority of the people, over 50%, also press the blue button, everybody lives. If you push the red button and 50% or more of people pick the red button, well, everybody that picked the blue button dies. Now, which button are you picking? And the argument, it's been hilarious to watch online because it divides up exactly in line with the colors of the buttons. The conservatives, the Republicans, are choosing, well, you push the red button, obviously. And the liberals are choosing the blue button, saying, how could you possibly sleep with yourself being responsible for the death of that many people? Well, I wouldn't be. I just pushed the button for what I believed. I'm not responsible for your well-being. In that scenario, that's not my business. You make your choice. You pay your dues, you take your chances. Yes. That's the way it works. And I'm sorry, no matter how hard we fight against it, no matter how hard we keep engaging in what Gadsod calls suicidal empathy and trying to spend so much time, effort, money, and emotional intensity on making sure that everybody else is taken care of, that we forget to take care of what's most important, we wind up in a situation where this was literally in Tacoma yesterday, a fight that broke out amongst high school kids. If I had a nickel for every fight I saw break out in high school, I would be a rich man right now.
I saw so many. I mean, you'd see people pull out the butter knife at lunch, and you're like, what in the world? What is going on here?
But you get right down to it. Things have changed because there is this attitude in the youth, I would say up through mid to late 20s, that everybody else's safety and comfort and success is more important than mine, and I've got to work to make sure that happens. I have some bad news for anyone who has that opinion. No matter how hard we fight it, no matter how hard we try, the principle of survival of the fittest remains undefeated. You can't do away with that. That's a basic precept of having a pulse.
And, of nature. You can sit out in your backyard and watch it all the time. Let a cat loose. Yeah. Watch what it does. Watch what birds live, and such on and so forth. As Oliver Wendell Holmes, great Supreme Court justice, once said, was it my rights end where the other man's fist begins? And so everybody has a little bubble, but your bubble is your responsibility. It's not mine.
Yes. Personal accountability. Instead, we have spent quite a lot of effort and money and time trying to cement the idea that everyone else's rights and quality of life are your responsibility, not theirs.
Well, it's easy to hand the responsibility for your life off to someone else and then blame everything when it doesn't go right. It's easier to do that than to actually get up every day and make something of your life. It's a saying that I kind of have in my head a lot of times. It's easier to pretend to be real out there in social media, but real life's a lot harder.
Yes,
I mean, you can pretend all you want out there, but the real world is something where it's a zero-sum game. You got to get up and get after it every day.
The way that relates to what I said about violence and the reason why that has led into it is very simple psychology. If someone has spent their entire life being told by all these authority figures and people that seem to know what they're talking about that everyone needs to be looking out for them, they may not be told that. They may see it. They may experience it over and over. Every time they get a participation trophy, there's somebody there to make sure they don't feel bad. Mm-hmm. They never feel bad. You're always a winner. And as a result, when something doesn't go exactly their way, when someone disagrees with them, when someone has a different attitude about things, maybe, I don't know, they're looking out for their own interests first, which is kind of how it's always worked, they can't handle it. They can't process it. And we wind up with outbreaks of violence from people who are no longer emotionally equipped to deal with disagreement or with the impartiality that life treats you with.
Well, you also have that polarization of it as well when you have professors such as the Thomas guy, isn't that his name, up at Ole Miss with, tweeting out, 86-47 and all that stuff. And, those are people that are in charge of educating minds that are forming political opinions, minds that are probably for the first time coming together in a college setting with folks that they don't know, that didn't grow up next door to them, that they didn't go to church with, that have different beliefs. When you start polarizing issues like that, and you have a person that is in a trusted position of power, and that's a professor. I have a tendency, look, I'm all about free speech and all that, but inciting things such as that should be held accountable. I'm not saying you fire somebody or what. I'm not after somebody's job, but there should be some modicum of order and respect, and I think that we're seeing less and less of that. And that will trickle down to what you see in schools and kids, and because they're forming these opinions. I don't ever remember being polarized as a student, whether even through college. I didn't have that experience. So I have a tendency to respect pretty much everyone, everybody's religion, everybody's right to live and what they want to do. But that's their responsibility, and I try to respect that.
Well, they may have tried to indoctrinate me. I mean, I was in college in the 80s. Yeah. But if they did, I didn't notice because sure. I am so bloody-mindedly independent that's a really steep cliff to climb with me.
I had a professor that, one that was taught the history of Africa, which I loved the class, but he was a Northeasterner, taught at a all-private school type thing, and his opinions were what came out more often than the facts. And that, to me, bothered me a good deal, knowing that this person is somebody I had to place trust in and also had to spend an inordinate amount of time listening to, regurgitate things that weren't fact and weren't even in the books that you were teaching from. So, that was the one that I had out of all of them.
Yeah. Well, there's always one, isn't there?
Always. Now there's more than one, though.
I don't care if you're talking about a classroom, babies, or dogs. There's always one. That's the troublemaker. The problem is, societally, a large group of people have decided to give them agency and say, yes, you're right.
There you go. That's it.
Now, sometimes you've got to do what my grandpa always said. You got to snatch a knot in their head. Then everything clears right up. You get focused. You get really focused at that point, Am I advocating beating your children? No, just the bad ones. We'll wrap.
From the Venable Glass Traffic Center.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
People want to hear the truth, man. That's what we're going to do.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Now I love you just the way I love that rag doll. Only now my love has grown, and it gets stronger in every way, and it gets deeper. Let me say, and it gets higher.
One more go around here on Mornings for the first day of May. It's May Day. May Day.
May Day.
Yeah. There's nothing to be upset about. We got some rain coming, but aside from that, no big deal. It's a beautiful day.
Hey, I have a factoid for you, a little trivia. Okay, there's obviously 50 states, 48 contiguous on the continental shelf here. What is the only state out of the 48 that actually exports internationally an agricultural product that's still alive?
So like livestock, like a living creature.
Yeah, there's only one in the continental 48 that exports something that is what we would call a live animal. Agricultural, really being 3 of the 48, but one of them specifically exports cattle. Live cattle.
Export. Well, the obvious guess would be Texas because they're known for cattle, right?
Yeah, well, you'd think, but Montana.
Okay,
yeah,
that
Montana
also makes sense.
Now, Alaska exports fishing. You would think that there would be oil, given the Prudhoe Bay and all that, but no. And then so there's 2 others, Colorado and Nebraska. Their export internationally, largest one is meat packing, so that's not necessarily the same thing. That's a processed item. Mississippi, guess what Mississippi's number 1 export internationally is?
Catfish?
Refining.
Oh, okay.
Oil and gas, Texas, Louisiana.
See, I was still on animals.
Yeah, exactly. You would think. And there's only one state really that does, cattle, and then you have the two meat packing. Everybody else is either IT hardware, oil and gas, aircraft is huge, machinery, medical products, and medicine, and then primary metals. So yes, but most everything centers around that. So even Mississippi, a state that is what we would call an agricultural state, exports more in the refining capacity than we do anything else.
Very interesting. And so many people don't realize, we've done interviews before with people, just how big the oil industry is in Mississippi.
Well, and it relates to the world that we live in, too, right? Because we've seen prices all over the place.
Yeah.
America being a country that exports quite a bit of oil, natural gas as well. But, you see that you still have the dependency on regional producers. But this country, though, I found that surprising and interesting. A lot of these states you would think actually export as something other than what they do. Is their primary export. But that is under the Visual Capitalist. I always love checking that out about once or twice a week. Yeah. It always has some really cool stuff in there. So if you're interested in Visual Capitalist, and it'll show you the exports by state. And that is 2025, so we don't have 2026 numbers, obviously.
Nature is healing, by the way. Pizza Hut has restarted its Book It program where when you read enough books over your summer break, you get a free pizza.
Oh, I was hoping they were bringing back the pizza buffet,
Oh, that would be nice, but no.
The old sit-down Pizza Huts with the stained glass hanging above you and a pizza buffet over there, and you're like, I'm going to be here for at least 2 hours.
They always had, or usually had, one of those sit-down console video games.
Oh, of course.
We had Miss Pac-Man in ours. I got really good at Miss Pac-Man because of that specific game, by the way.
It was a sit-down one, too, with a roller, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you could barely grab the roller because there was so much pizza grease on it. It seemed to be a necessary attachment.
That was part of the challenge. That helped. It's like jogging with weights on your ankles. You got really good really quick.
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as you got to a dry, grease-free machine, you could light it up. Right. You just had to get there. I want to remind everybody again before we get out of here that the Chicago concert at the Brandon Amphitheater tonight is not tonight. It was tonight. It was scheduled for tonight. And then Mother Nature turned out to be a Chicago fan, and she's coming into town to catch them. But that'll wreck the strings on your guitar, or even worse, possibly electrocute you. Can't have the woodwinds out in the rain either, for that matter. So they have moved the Chicago concert that was tonight at the Brandon Amphitheater. It has been moved to Sunday. Still going to happen this weekend. It's just going to be Sunday, not tonight.
That'd be awesome. Like I said, I'm glad they're still doing it.
Yes.
Hey, we have an update here. Tupelo has a Pizza Hut buffet, and it just opened.
Oh, nice.
What in the world?
I told you nature is healing.
It's healing, man. Come on.
Took long enough.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing in the world. When I traveled in sales many, many years ago, that would be the place I looked for every town I would go to. You could just plop down and eat up like $5 or something,
Yeah. Yeah, it was nothing. They used to have, personal note here to the folks at Pizza Hut, you used to have a barbecue beef pizza.
Oh, man.
Why do you not still have that pizza? It's annoying me.
It was legit.
I'm getting twinges in my jaw muscles now thinking about it. It was good. Man, fantastic. Buddy, enjoyed it like I always do.
Have a wonderful week, brother, coming up, and a great weekend.
I am going to try really hard to accomplish both of those. We'll see how successful I am when we reconvene next Friday morning at 6:06 here on Mornings. Have a good, safe, wonderful weekend, and I will see you then, my friend.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.